Uh, right. Right. So thank you, Ruwan. If I may call you Ruwan, it will be easier
Please go
for the
ahead.
discussion. Yeah. Um, Ruwan, I will start off by I thought it's best if we can look at the historicity of this debate,
Mm-hmm.
how this did happen. So I will because it happened as a result of a Facebook post. That we published on the Facebook page Philosophy in the West Bank, Bhattacharya Darshanaya, that is collectively run by the collective Philosophy in the West Bank. We usually publish things that we first discuss within our group, and this was one of those posts. It was posted in response to a hotly shared Facebook post by I actually don't remember the author, Samira, someone, about what happens after death. So we thought, during our discussions, we discussed this post, and then we thought it's best if we can give a response to this from a philosophical point of view, because Bhattacharya Darshanaya, Philosophy in the West Bank, is a philosophy group, and then our objective is to transmit the idea of philosophy, and hopefully, if we can, to initiate a philosophy movement in Sri Lanka. So that is the broader background of everything. I will start by uh, sharing the initial post because I think that will allow me to relocate the problem. And I gave a quick translation. This is obviously not a perfect translation because the initial post was in Sinhala. I thought it's best if, since the discussion will be in English, I thought I should translate it into English. So I will first read that initial post in English translation. Uh, and I will, along the way, I will explain certain points I think that should be worth emphasizing. And after that, I would like to read another text by a particular philosopher that is strategically, tactically important for us, um, which deals precisely with the point that I want to emphasize. Right. So this was a post published on Facebook. Anyone can go to Bhattacharya Darshanaya Facebook page and locate this. It was published on the 2nd of November, like this month, earlier this month. Uh, and the title was What Happens After Death. I mean, we published it in Sinhala, but I'm going to read it in English translation. So this is what was there on the post. Philosophy is a strange practice. It is an investigation that tries to answer the question, what can we know? What can we truly know? This is the most important point I want to emphasize. Philosophy is an attempt to answer the question, what can we truly know? Or in other words, what is necessary? What is necessarily true that we can prove by way of an argumentation, by way of a uh, 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 argumentation, by giving reasons that anyone who comes across this would have to accept this position. That is the idea. So various responses have been given to this question throughout the history of philosophy. Sorry, I forgot to mention that I agreed with Ruwan about the format of this discussion. So the plan is that I will speak 15 minutes and then Ruwan will speak 15. And then after that, we will have a second round where each of us can respond to each other. And after that, if anyone is interested, they can also join in with questions or maybe very brief idea. Right. Uh, so this is philosophy. Philosophy is a project. It's a practice. Actually, it's a practice that attempts to answer the question: what can we truly know? What is necessarily true? What is necessarily true? Various responses have been given to this question throughout the history of philosophy. Uh, it has a long history that goes all the way back to Greeks, uh, more than 2,500 years old. But what concerns us here, this is what we wrote on Facebook, remember. What concerns us here, however, is a particular problem that is caused by this philosophical approach. The approach is that we are looking for what can we know for truth? I mean, what can we know truthfully? What can we know necessarily? That is the question. But this already, we are encountered by a problem because of this particular. The problem is that we can't definitively know what happens to us after our death. I will explain why this is the case. This is the reason why the traditional distinction between religion and atheism. In the Sinhala post, we have used Niragamikavadya rather than Adevavadya, but just to make it simpler, I use atheism. So philosophy cannot be categorized under this broad, traditional distinction between religion and atheism, because both these positions take very decisive, uh, uh, decisive positions on this particular issue, right? We know that according to religious beliefs, various religious beliefs, there are different scenarios. If you are a believer in a monastic religions, you believe after death you will either go to hell or to heaven, depending on you know, in this life. Or if you are an atheist or you are a irreligious person, that your existence will be abolished, right? Those are the two clear positions. But philosophy cannot be categorized by, I don't know who's, right, okay. Right. So the philosopher cannot be satisfied by accepting what can be called the common sense, right? So it's an important point. I want to say, I have to make this distinction between personal opinions and philosophical positions. If someone were to ask me what my personal opinion with regard to what happens to us after death, I would say my personal opinion is that our existence will simply cease. We'll no longer exist, and we'll be a non-being. Right? That is my personal opinion. Right. But the problem with personal, in our day-to-day life, obviously, we don't every single judgment we make, we take so many things for granted. Like, our ordinary day-to-day life is surrounded by such personal opinions. Even if we take a very mundane issue like beneath my feet right now, I assume that during the course of this debate, it will remain steady, right? But if someone were to push me on this point and ask me, how do I know that the ground will remain steady? I will obviously give a definitive reason and challenge this point. I will very soon. Attitude. If we are talking about, if we look at things from a strictly philosophical point of view, right? So this is the point that is emphasized in this post. Right? We cannot take a common sense attitude. Right? My personal opinion, as I say, is that our life, our existence come to an end at death. But that is my opinion. But if someone asks me, what is your philosophical position? That is not my philosophical. Right? Once again, this is the fundamental question of philosophy. What can we truly know? It is very clear that we cannot know what happens after death. If we try to answer that by way of this question, it's a very crude question, but I hope you get the idea. Right? If we try to answer that question by that original philosophical approach, what can we truly know? We cannot give answer like that. From Socrates' initial statements on death to Derrida's ideas, nothing much has changed in this regard. Like if you read Socrates' uh, apple, other end of the river, as they say, I will be taken and then I will meet the gods. And that's nice. Socrates says, I have the opportunity to ask all these questions. What is justice? What is true? And all these things from gods themselves. So that's fine. And if else, he says, maybe I will fall into a deep sleep, like the sort of sleep where you're not disturbed. And, it will be an eternal rest. So either way, it's fine. That's what Socrates says. But the point is, he accepts we don't know. We cannot know, right? So this was the initial point, very beginning of philosophy, right? Socrates says. And you can see the same argument repeated even in a recent thinker, recent 20th century French philosopher, Jacques Derrida, right? In his apology, sorry, not apology, in his book Aporias, he says, where he discusses Martin Heidegger's theory of death, right? He come to the conclusion that we don't know what death is, right? But that is what I say in the next sentence. This is why Derrida calls death a secret. He says death is a secret religion that we all believe in. We are all Muranos. Muranos are these I think they are from Spain, I believe, during the Catholic dominance of Europe, who were secretly Jews, but they were openly they were practicing Christianity. Publicly, they were Christians, but they were secretly uh, Jews, so they were called Muranos. So I mean, Derrida says we are all Muranos in the sense that we all accept this secret religion called death because we don't know what death is. So from Socrates to Derrida, the basic idea hasn't changed. We cannot know for sure what that experience is. I will explain in a bit why this is the case. We have no option but to believe in this instance. But philosophy proceeds by responding to the question, what can we know? By responding to that question in whatever way, we can come to know what we truly know about the world and our existence. So that is the purpose of philosophy. Philosophy seeks an answer to the question, what we truly know. When we get an answer to that question, then we can know what exactly we know about our existence and about the world we live in. Right? That way we can make the distinction between what we know and what we don't know. As a result, we come to a position from which we can raise a more important question. When we know exactly what we know and exactly what we don't know, then we can raise a more important question. What is what is justice? Right? So this is the important question. This is the question that philosophy ultimately wants to answer, right? Responding to this question is the ultimate end of philosophy. It is a long and difficult path. It does not contain shortcuts. What follows is a Facebook post compiled. So, I mean, I'm just recording, I'm translating the Facebook post we posted in Bhattacharya Darshanaya. And so this is what we wrote. I mean, because as I said, it was posted as a response to this very popular post by a person. We don't know him personally, but he's we gathered that he's very well known among certain readers on Facebook. Samira Salinda Pereira. So he had put a post, which we had put after this, our post. We had copied it. So he talks about what happens after death. It is so according to him, so it's a very realistic, so-called atheistic position. He says that, our existence simply ceased, right? We no longer exist. But it is a misfortune of all of us that this position is only a belief. So this was the point made in the post. Consequently, it does not provide us with a solid foundation to base our ideas on. When we go further down on his Facebook page, that is Samira's Facebook page, it becomes clear that he is against the NPP. Now, we wanted to make a political point as well, because we believe these philosophical positions that we take, there is a very interesting link between these philosophical positions and the political positions. That's something that we at Bhattacharya Darshanaya, something that we have long been interested in. So along those lines, we checked on Samira Salinda Pereira's Facebook page, and then we realized that he's against the NPP and he's a supporter of Rani. If someone is interested in truly learning philosophy, examining such characters like Samira Salinda Pereira can be a useful case study. So this was the initial post. On the 2nd of November, we posted this on Facebook. So as a comment to this post, Ruwan, in response, he put the following comment. So Ruwan says, There is no life after death, no rebirth, no reincarnation, or no transmigration. So I wouldn't go. I don't want to read all the consequent comments that we exchanged. Anyone who's interested, I asked them to go to that Facebook page on the 2nd of November. You can read all the exchanges we had with Ruwan. Uh, but so this was the context of this debate, right? We claim that we cannot definitely, conclusively prove what happens to us after death, right? Ruwan challenged that idea, saying there is no life after death, no rebirth, no reincarnation, no transmigration. So, but remember, our position was not a matter of our personal opinion. We were not saying that, it is, I think, I also feel that there is no life after death. It wasn't like that. Our question was a strictly philosophical, epistemological question. We were interested in knowing, can we truly know what happens to us after death? And we say we can. And this history of philosophy was on our side because philosophy is always interested in answering the question, what can we truly know? Right. So the second text I want to share, as I said, which is strategically important to us, is a text by contemporary French philosopher, Contemplasu, uh, whose very famous philosophy debut book, which we have translated into Sinhala, Paramitatva in Pasu, but I will read from the English translation. It is originally in French, but I will read the English translation. In the middle of that book, at a very decisive point in the argument, there is this famous fictional debate between five positions. But I will not go into all the full debate because what concerns us is only the very beginning of the debate, the very starting point of this debate. Right. Let us, he says, I'm quoting Mesu. Let us suppose that two dogmatists are arguing about the nature of our future post-mortem. What happens after our death? So there is a Christian and there is we'll call an atheist, right? The Christian dogmatist claims to know, because she has supposedly demonstrated it, that our existence continues after death and that it consists in the eternal contemplation of a God whose nature is incomprehensible from within the confines of our present existence. Thus, the latter claims to have demonstrated that what is in itself is a God who, like the Cartesian God, like Cartesian in the sense Descartes' idea of God, Cartesian God can be shown by our finite reason to be incomprehensible for our finite reason. But the atheist dogmatist claims to know, on the contrary, our existence is completely abolished by death, which utterly annihilates us. So there's a debate between a Christian and an atheist. We can easily introduce, instead of the Christian, we can change characters here easily, and we can introduce a Buddhist or a Hindu who believes in reincarnation. We can say, okay, there is a Christian, there is a Hindu or a Buddhist who says that they know that our existence continue after death, and we'll go into a different life. And on the other hand, there is the atheist or the irreligious person who claims that they know that it won't happen. There is no reincarnation. Our existence is completely abolished by death, which utterly annihilates us. Right. So it's important to know that both these positions are dogmatic. Right? Why do we call them dogmatic? Both these positions. It's very important. Not only the religious position, but also the atheist or the irreligious position. Both these positions are dogmatic. Right? I want to emphasize that. It is at this stage that the correlationist, okay, will not go into the definition of a correlation. We'll say it's a philosopher, right, to simplify things. All right, so philosopher comes along to disqualify both of their positions by defending a strict theoretical agnosticism. All beliefs strike her as equally legitimate, given that theory is incapable of privileging one eventuality over another. So for the philosopher, both these positions of the religious person and the irreligious person, right? Both these positions are equally legitimate, right? We cannot refute one or the other. They are both equally legitimate. Why? Right? For just as I cannot know the in itself without converting it into a forming, right? I cannot know what will happen to me when I am no longer of this world, since knowledge presupposes that one is of the world, right? So let's unpack this idea. So in we can, I mean, in philosophy where there's this basic distinction, right? So there is a world that is relative to me, that the world I perceive, according to my own personal subjective perspective. But then on the other hand, there is a world that is independent of me, or we suppose that there is a world independent of me, that does not require my subjective perception in order to exist, right? But the problem is, how do we know about that in itself that does not require my subjective perception? Because I only have ever access to the world through my subjective perception. If you remove my subjective perception, I have no idea what that in itself is, right? So the same way, the same argument applies here, right? Because uh, if I want to know something, I can only know so because I'm alive, I'm part of this world. So if you're talking about, so knowledge presupposes that I'm part of this world, right? So consequently, the agnostic has little difficulty in refuting both of these positions. All she has to do is demonstrate that it is self-contradictory to claim to know what is when one is no longer alive. Right? To say that I know what is there when I am no longer alive is self-contradictory because I can only know it as long as I am alive. So how can I know what is there when I'm no longer alive? I need to be alive in order to say something about it. I cannot say something about it if I'm not alive. So the same argument, right? Since knowledge presupposes that one is still of this world, if I'm not part of this world, I cannot know about this. Accordingly, the two dogmatists are proffering realist theses about the in himself. So both the religious person who believes in the continuation of life after death, and the irreligious person who says that there is no life after death, they are both uh, proffering realist, they are both introducing realist theses. They claim to know what is there when we are not there, right? Both of which are vitiated by the inconsistency proper to all realism. So as a result, both these positions fall into the same trap that any realist would fall into, that of claiming to think what there is when one is not. We cannot think what exists when we are not there, because existence, knowledge about existence, presupposes that I exist. When I no longer exist, I cannot know. So, I mean, if we, to conclude, so the basic point is that I can only know about death as long as I'm alive. I can talk about death, we are talking about death. We can only do so because we are all alive, right? I have not experienced it. I cannot speak with a dead person and ask how does it feel like to be dead. All I can do is I can think about it from the perspective of life, right? So anyone who attempts to say that I know definitively uh, what happens after death will fall into this epistemological deadlock, right? So philosophically speaking, we cannot say one way or the other. So philosophy is neither a religious position nor an atheistic position, because all we are interested is knowing exactly what we can know truly, or what we know necessarily, what is necessary, right? That is the question of the philosophy, right? So this is my point, uh, that we cannot know uh, definitively, conclusively. We cannot conclusively demonstrate what happens after death. Right. Right. So that I will conclude with that. Ruwan, you can carry on.
Okay. So I hope everybody can hear me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Let me share my uh, screen. Okay. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yeah. You're very clear.
Okay. Only problem is I can make it extra large. Then, for some strange reason, you are not getting the. You can't see the rest of the multimedia pictures. So I'm glad and I'm honored to have this
Ruwan,
discussion.
I can't see the. Have you started sharing your screen? Because I can't see
You
anything.
can't see the screen?
No, I can't see. Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now you can see?
Yeah.
Yeah. Only thing is I can't go to the extra large mode. Then I face some technical error. I don't know. I'm not a tech savvy guy. So I hope you can see the screen now. Can you see the screen?
Yeah. I can see. We can
Okay,
see.
okay. So I'm honored, Vangeesa. This is the first time I have encountered you and having this discussion. And it was marvelous that you brought a lot of philosophical stuff here and with your academic discipline. And I'm impressed. So here, before starting our discussion, aka the debate, I would like to say that there are no winners, because I mean, eventually, two of us would come into a blind alley, and here what we are doing is not competing each other or not slandering each other. We are sharing knowledge. We try to do a brainstorming. I think that is the whole purpose. So let me just start with basic facts about reincarnation. So it's a fact or a myth. Uh, and it's a fundamental basis for many religion, and it's a philosophical, religious, and cultural concept. So we have to say that clinical evidence for reincarnation is subjective and arguable. Uh, to begin with, 300,000 years ago, Neanderthals, they believed in some form of life after death, confirmed by the anthropologists. So this very idea came to the human civilization. And 6,000 years ago, Mesopotamians believed life after death, and even Sumerians. For Sumerians, life after death, that concept was not very prosperous one. For them, it was a very miserable, grey, dark existence with their own ancestors. And as you know, the Egyptian pharaohs believed in transmigration of the soul. That's why they built mighty pyramids. As you mentioned, Vangeesa, Greek philosophers, especially Pythagoras and Socrates, they believed in reincarnation. For them, it was like a purification of soul. And the concept of reincarnation is first recorded in Upanishads. Then the Hinduism, according to Hinduism, you can be born as an animal or a divine being or a plant. Even in Bhagavad Gita, it's clearly stated that reincarnation is a natural process. And in reincarnation in Buddhism, as you know, it's somewhat different. The Buddha used the term punarbhava instead of it's because the Buddha denies transmigration of a soul, and because he considered mind as a transient mental state, and according to Buddhism, only the karma is passing from one life to another. Here, Buddha brings the metaphor of the candle. If you remember the debate of Milinda and Nagasena, there are a lot of analogies about the reincarnation, and it clearly states that there is no transmigration. And some scholars, they debate whether Buddha believed in reincarnation, or probably in the latter stages, the Reverend Buddha Gosha, some scholars, Nagarjun, they brought this concept to Buddhism. So Christians, they believed in reincarnation in the early stages, and the Christian theologians like Valentinus and Basilides of Alexandria, they believed in reincarnation. However, in 553 AD, during the Second Council of Constantinople, they banished the idea of reincarnation. The Italian philosopher Giordano Bruno, he believed in reincarnation, and he was killed by the Spanish Inquisition. Even Benjamin Franklin believed in reincarnation. And according to Freud, it's an attempt to deal with a fear of death, because Freud considered this as a childhood fantasy, because we all have sort of certain fear of death, and we don't want to end our lives after death, and we try to fantasize something beyond. But for Carl Jung, who introduced the collective unconscious, he tends to say that we share a common knowledge, common experiences, and we are connected to a certain common grid. And according to Jung, this collective unconscious is the source of the belief in reincarnation. And he gives numerous examples. For instance, this chakra in Indian and Mayan civilization, despite the fact that these two civilizations were far away from each other and existed two different time frames. And there are a lot of symbols you can find in the civilization in Egypt, Turkey, Indonesia, in Latin America, India. So somehow throughout the civilization, we shared certain common knowledge. And according to Jung, these past life memories are merely result of collective unconscious. And we know that we all came from the stars, and the atoms that in our bodies, they belong to somebody else, maybe who lived 300, 400 years ago. So we are sharing the same atomic structure. So why not the consciousness? So when you come to the reincarnation and the Western world, especially Madame Blavatsky and Father Leadbeater were prominent. They were started writing about the reincarnation as a parapsychological phenomenon. Then in the West, if you could remember the pictures like reincarnation of Peter Proud and Warren Beatty's Heaven Can Wait, and the Ghost, and a number of movies, they started talking about the phenomenon of reincarnation. And in the West, the Canadian, Dr. Ian Stevens' work always, those who believe in reincarnation, they try to highlight the case works of Dr. Ian Stevenson. And a few months ago, I had a discussion with another prominent doctor, a pediatrician. The first thing he said, you read Dr. Ian Stevenson's research. I said I did read. I read Dr. Ian Stevenson, and I don't consider him as the the valid investigator. I'll tell you why. In his book 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation, that was published in 74, and he included several cases from Sri Lanka. So these are the reasons why it was not scientific. Dr. Ian Stevenson was confirmation biased because when he started the investigation, he always thought that this was a reincarnation case. That was in the back of his mind. The second thing, he had no cultural competence. He did these investigations in India, Burma, Sri Lanka, but he didn't have the cultural competence and cultural sensitivity. And now, so later they found that some of the translators, maybe consciously, they offered data confirming reincarnation. So he worked via translators. So there was a lot of errors, and he disregarded the role of cultural conditioning while doing this research. And it's known factor that its hypotheses were not falsifiable and his data was not definitive to suggest reincarnation. So a lot of Sri Lankan professionals, especially doctors, when they talk about reincarnation, they bring Ian Stevenson to the table. So I always disregard Dr. Ian Stevenson's work as something serious. So some people say that skills and past life, because some children show enormous talent in language, memory, and skills. You can see child prodigies everywhere, every corner in the world, in every civilization. For instance, Mozart played his symphony at the age of 7. Then Ramanujan, he mastered advanced trigonometry by the age of 12. And how did these people got knowledge and skill? From where did it come? Not from their culture, not from their family tree. So obviously they say these children had past life and they got their skills via the talents from their previous lives. But according to neuropsychological research, it's been proved that these people had high functional autism. For instance, Ramanujan, he was on the spectrum, and even he didn't know that. He thought that there was a deity named Namagiri was sending him messages. These people had abnormal brain mapping due to genetic predisposition and also hyper brain with enhanced plasticity. So their brains not like you and me. It's very advanced, and they are in a different wavelength. So they had these skills and this enormous knowledge. So enhanced neuroplasticity, and it was proven via brain scans, and they have a lot of developed areas in their brains. And the other thing, people bring deja vu experience. It's an uncanny feeling that if you go to some strange place where you had never been before, and you get a feeling that you were here in the past. So that deja vu experience is a neurophysiological phenomenon. Sometimes it happens asymmetry, this synchronization of your left and right brain hemispheres. These are research proven factors. For instance, you go to Scotland and you get a feeling that you have seen these old castles before. Obviously, you were reading Walter Scott's novels, and when you see the castles, you have a feeling that you need this. You had been to these places before, deja vu experience are not memories of past lives. It's a neurophysiological phenomenon. So as I mentioned, it's due to assimilation of information by the brain's hemispheres in two different times, and sometimes cryptoamnesia. So what is cryptoamnesia? Cryptoamnesia is where a person may have experienced something similar in their current life and mistakenly attribute it to a past life. The best example I can give, when General George Patton, when he was in Tunisia in the ancient Roman ruins, he had a feeling. If you read his biography, he says, I was born before I was here. When he first saw these ancient Roman ruins, he had this crypto-amnesia type of reaction. So actually what really happened, he was a master strategic tactician, and obviously he had widely read about Roman military campaigns, and he had widely read about this war literature, and these things were deposited in his mind. So when he was exposed to these Roman ruins, obviously he had this uncanny feeling that he was there before. Some people say that xenoglossy, an evidence for reincarnation, it's a phenomenon in which person is allegedly able to speak or write or understand a foreign language. So those who believe in reincarnation state that cases of xenoglossy provide evidence for reincarnation. So 3 months prior to his death, I met Professor Nalin de Silva. Prof. Nalin told me that he met a child from a purely Sinhala-speaking family from a certain village. This child speaks brilliant English with an specific Scottish or Irish accent. But what happens there? Obviously, these children have very highly developed Broca brain area. Their language centers are highly developed, and they pick languages like nothing, because these children have tabs. These children can access YouTube and the television. So obviously, when they hear words, sentences, they pick it very fast. So actually, that's the knowledge acquired through normal means. Sometimes you get fraud. It's a subconscious language learning system, and these children are very gifted. And if you can remember, there was a child from Nigeria speaking several languages. Obviously, he had a tab given by his uncle, and he had access to YouTube. So he was watching Hindi movies, he was watching English movies. So these children, if you do brain scanning, if you do MRI, you can see that they have highly developed broadcast area in their brain hemisphere, and they are very fast learners. And this foreign language syndrome and foreign accent syndrome. I had a patient when I was working at the military hospital, one officer who faced traumatic battle event, and he sustained traumatic brain injury. After the injury, when he speaks in Sinhala, it gives a Tamil accent, and he was highly troubled by that. And it was really, really troubling for him. And I discussed with Professor Dayasoma Sundaram about this case study, and our conclusion, it could be something organic as well as something psychological. All of a sudden you lose your natural accent, and you start speaking in either the foreign accent. So reincarnation could be due to selective thinking. In selective thinking, you focus on favorable evidence to justify a belief, ignoring unfavorable evidence. And the other thing is false memory syndrome. Sometimes they have certain belief patterns, false memories, and they attribute it to reincarnation. And false memory syndrome may account for the memory construction process. And the person believes, and he or she believes that the person had a previous life, and he or she was related to the kings and queens or Napoleon, you name it. And they believe it. They are not lying. If you do a lie test, they pass, because it's due to false memory syndrome. And they have a very, very strong belief. You can't argue with these people. And they said, no, I was born several centuries ago. I served under Napoleon. I served under Alexander the Great. And the other thing is paramnesia, memory distortions, also gives birth to reincarnation like thoughts. So whenever, especially Buddhist monks, when they talk about reincarnation, they bring Edgar Cayce. American mystic Edgar Cayce, also known as the Sleeping Prophet, he did some readings. He did 16,000 readings during his lifetime. And the symptomatology of his patients, he attributed to karma. And his famous book, Many Mansions, written by Gina Sarminara, I think it was translated into Sinhala by Reverend Kannimara Sumangala Thero. So this created big impact on Buddhists in Sri Lanka, especially when you talk about reincarnation. They never forget to mention about Edgar Cayce. So let us look at Edgar Cayce. Can we consider his readings to prove reincarnation? No, we can't. Why? Because he attributed the symptoms and he disregarded etiology. And for instance, he said people who committed adultery in their past lives, they suffer from epilepsy. But today's research, we know that epilepsy has other organic reasons and also change of brain chemistry. So genesis of epilepsy and other illnesses, his explanation was it's very lame. And he was never subjected to proper testing. And it's not based on empirical evidence and cannot be independently evaluated. Yes, he gave some successful treatments. Some people, they were able to gain therapeutic success. Yes, sometimes, the pseudo effects, sometimes it has the therapeutic value, even though you give distilled water. I have treated a number of patients with unexplainable medical symptoms, and you give an injection, distilled water, and you can cure some of the patients, because we have to understand that there's a placebo effect. And some people bring past life regressions, especially in hypnosis. Children or adults, sometimes they talk about their past lives. So past life regression is not about it's not about reincarnation. It's about repressed childhood memories. And when children are under hypnotic regression, these childhood memory, not only children, even the adults, when they are under hypnotic regression, a lot of memories come into action. Those are wrongly interpreted as evidence of reincarnation. The best example would be the search for Bridie Murphy. So Bridie Murphy is a housewife. She was in present life, her name is Virginia T. So she was hypnotized by Murray Bronstein, and under the hypnotic trance, Virginia T said that her name was Bridie Murphy and she was living in Ireland. And she mentioned about a laundry, she mentioned about some very specific geographical places, and also she uttered some very old Irish poems. So a group of lawyers went to Ireland and they went through the many records and found that yes, there was a person named Bridie Murphy in Ireland, and they found the laundry. And they found that this was not a fictitious character. And a lot of people said, yeah, now you can prove reincarnation. But they do a investigation and found that Virginia T, she had a nanny from Ireland when she was small. So these poems she uttered under the hypnotic trance, she got it from the nanny. And also these names and geographical locations, those are coincidences. If I hypnotize a person today and he says that he is Dharmasena, who lived in 1960s in Kurunegala, near near a coconut estate belonged to some Pereira Mahathir. You go to Kurunegala, you can find these. I mean, somehow you can find certain correlations. So it was something like that. And the famous Sri Lankan case study, Jnana Tilaka, this was done by HSS Nisanka with Reverend Piyadasi, and hope you have read this book, Nevathu Pandariya. So people thought that this was a very clear research study that resonate reincarnation. A girl named Jnana Tilaka, she said that she was born in Talawakale, and she said in her previous life she lived in Aranayaka. Her name was Tilakaratna, and the family took her to Aranayaka, and she recognized her mother, father, and brothers in her previous life. And they submitted the death certificate of Tilakaratna from the Aranayaka hospital. So Abraham Kaur challenged this reincarnation case, and he pointed out that they just submitted some Tilakaratna's death certificate, not this Turin Tilakaratna, the particular person. So that was a fraud. The second one, Jnana Tilaka, was conditioned. A lot of people interviewed her, a lot of people gave her ideas, and she was reinforced with this idea. And in the early, in 1997, 6, I worked as the divisional director, health services of Minipe and the MOH. So I met one doctor, Dr. Dharmasiri Herat. He knew Jnana Tilaka, now practicing as an Ayurvedic doctor. And Jnana Tilaka had told him that she was conditioned. So this investigation, you can't buy this as a valid proof of reincarnation. And sometimes hysteria type of reactions, and children suffering from dissociative disorder, they give vivid narration. So in Sri Lanka, the media people, they exaggerate, they fabricate stories and say that, okay, now President Premadas is born as a child. Oh, Vijay Kumaratunga. So these are hysteria type of reactions, exaggerated, and also exaggerated by the media. So Dr. Brian Weiss, he introduced past life therapy. He's a psychiatrist, and he vividly narrates one case study of Catherine and her previous life. And he wrote this book, Many Lives, Many Masters. I read this book, and there he gives numerous case studies, very, very convincing. When people under hypnotic trance, they attribute their present ailments to previous things that they have committed. And especially Catherine's case study was very convincing. But later, the investigators, researchers, they found that it's merely repressed childhood memories. So it's not valid evidence for reincarnation. It's wrongly interpreted as evidence of past life. I had a hypnotic session in 2006 military hospital, and this session was witnessed by Dr. Nimalka Aryaratna, a consultant physician, Dr. Tissa Vijayaratna, consultant surgeon, and Brigadier Soisa, and Dr. S.S. Jayaratna, also consultant surgeons. This soldier mentioned that in his previous life, he lived in Kurunegala, and he gave a name. He mentioned about some Batkade in Kurunegala. In fact, Dr. Tissa Vijayaratna took me to Kurunegala. He forcibly took me, and he wanted to investigate this. But we found some evidence, I would say about 60%, but those are coincidence. And naturally, what my interpretation is, these soldier mentioned facts were based on his repressed childhood memories. And the other thing is near-death experiences. Dr. Raymond Moody, his famous book, Life After Death, he interviewed a lot of patients who later revived, who had near-death experiences, and they have this tunnel vision. Sometimes they go up, they see their body. Sometimes they meet their deceased relatives. So what is the peculiarity there? Near-death experience, is it real? So it's mostly due to neurological functions, because when the brain is in hypoxic state, they go into vivid hallucinations, and there are a lot of neurons. They are firing frantically. And if you are a Christian, when you experience a near-death experience, you would see Saint Peter. If you are a Hindu, you would see Krishna. So as a joke, I say if you are an atheist, you would see Ozzy Osbourne. So Dr. Raymond Moody's book, Life After Death, he mentions about a lot of cases and vivid narrations about near-death experiences. And he believes there is something beyond. There is some entity after people die. But this is all, and they see their entire life like a fast movie. So this is my experience. In 2003, I was referred a patient by Dr. S.S. Jayatunge, and this soldier sustained a mortar blast injury during Operation Jayasikuru, and he told me that he experienced a vivid, he experienced a near-death experience. These are his words. I heard a loud noise and realized that it was a mortar attack by the LTTE. Suddenly, I found that I was bleeding from my head and I fell down. I could hear the gunfire and blast sounds. There was a dark smoke. The next thing I realized was that I was going out of my physical body and floating. I was going up, could see the battlefield. I saw bunkers from above, saw dead bodies and the black smoke. But I did not hear any sounds. It was a sensational feeling that it was very peaceful. I saw my body down there near the bunker and I could identify it easily. I saw bleeding from my head, but I felt no pain. Suddenly, I wanted to join with my body and rapidly I came down. Then I felt pain in my head and heard the sounds. I opened my eyes. I was lying on the ground helplessly. After some time, a group of soldiers came and took me to the hospital. I wish I could stay up there without joining the body. It was so peaceful there. So this is again, the brain is having hypoxic state and neurons firing frantically. It's just like what happens when a candle gets to the end. So it's something like that, this near-death experience. It's caused by reduced blood flow coupled with abnormal electrical behavior inside the brain. So you see vivid imagination, and also you can map out your surrounding. Even though you have the helicopter view, it's all your imagination. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, she worked with people, terminally ill people, and she did a lot of research on death and dying. And she says that death is simply a shedding of the physical body, like the butterfly shedding its cocoon. It's a transition to a higher state of consciousness where you continue to perceive, to understand, to laugh, and to do able to grow. So she thinks that there's another dimension after life. So Kubler-Ross, I spoke to one clinical psychologist who is a very prominent clinical psychologist, Padma De Silva of the King's College London, and I spoke about Kubler-Ross's research work. And Padma told me that in the latter stage, the even her colleagues suspected her sanity. So one common critique of Kubler-Ross theory is that fact that dying does not happen in a stage-like progression. So she was wrong. She thought that it's like a stage by stage, and each dying patients are unique. They do not go through Kubler-Ross path. So recently, I had another friendly discussion with Dr. Mahinda Patirana, because he said reincarnation can be explained with quantum theory, because it's a maybe reincarnation is a quantum reality, and using quantum entanglement we can prove reincarnation. So quantum entanglement explain how two subatomic particles can be intimately linked to each other even if separated by billions of light years of space. So these particles communicate faster than the speed of light. should, many people, even Dr. Deepak Chopra, they say that we can't explain reincarnation through classical Newtonian physics, and also using mathematics or cell biology. So they said we can easily explain quantum physics to explain the reincarnation process. But consciousness is a complex and multi-phased phenomenon. However, so far, physicists have explained that quantum entanglement is a physical reality. So there's no there's currently no scientific evidence to support the idea that quantum mechanics can explain reincarnation. That's the final conclusion of the research community. So what passes through generations, what passes through its biologically reincarnation explained in terms of the expression of dominant genes that come from the ancestors. So probably uh, Buddha was referring to this because he said only the karma is passed through. Maybe karma is the genetic component. So finally, the past life testimonies also we can't buy that because these are cannot be independently verified, and there are psychological and cultural factors that can influence these claims. Also, finally, we had to say that there is no scientific evidence to prove reincarnation, and I would like to echo the words of Professor Stephen Harleys of University of Pennsylvania. He says there would have be not much difficulty in accepting the reincarnation hypothesis if it's empirically testable, falsifiable, and subject to confirming evidence. So these are his words. And with that, I conclude my first round. Then I want to go into the second round and bring some facts regarding reincarnation. So thank you very much, uh, everybody. So this ends the first episode.
Right.
Do you want me to
Yes,
withdraw or
yes,
shall I
yes.
keep the presentation?
No, can you? It's better if you can close the
Okay, but
screen sharing.
I need to
Yeah,
reshare
yeah,
the
yeah,
screen.
yeah.
Okay,
Right, right.
because
Sure.
my second stage I need because you brought a lot of philosophical stuff.
Right,
So I just did the basic explanation about reincarnation, Vangeesa. So okay, let me stop sharing.
right.
Have
Actually,
I gone?
Ruwan, yeah, yeah, it's gone now.
Okay,
It's
so
fine.
please over to you.
Right. I mean, I don't think I have. I mean, I basically have two basic points. I think the
Okay,
first
please go
first
ahead.
is that I want to emphasize very clearly that, as I said in my initial presentation, I made a distinction between what I called a personal opinion and a philosophical position.
Mm-hmm.
And I said that when it comes to my personal opinion, if someone were to ask me, what is your opinion? What will happen after death? I said my opinion is that I think our existence will simply come to an end, and our existence will be abolished. That is my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have any reservations with anyone who's attempting to prove, you know, which is essentially my own personal opinion as well, which is I
Mm-hmm.
think essentially what you are doing. But the problem remains though, as a philosopher, I am interested in knowing what we can truly know, what we can decisively prove, what we can demonstrate, what we can give, absolute proof. Philosophical demonstrations are obviously it's a very tricky business. It doesn't necessarily have one particular way of doing it. It can involve like a simple, very short argument. Say, for example, I'm sure most of uh, the participants here are familiar with Rene Descartes' famous words, I think, therefore I
Mm-hmm.
am. I mean, it's a very brief argument, but it can also involve like a huge system that needs a lot of steps in the process of proving. But either way, the important point of a philosophical demonstration is that you should be able to conclusively prove that there is no other position that can potentially overtake. So I think this is the correct position. That is the idea of philosophy. Philosophers always seek absolute truths or necessary truths. if you are uncomfortable with the word absolute. So my second point would be, as far as I understand, your presentation, what you have done is that you are attempting to disqualify these various arguments that are brought uh, in order to prove that there is reincarnation. These empirical arguments from Ian Stevenson to, I took a few notes.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
wanted to highlight that contemporary research,
right,
neuropsychological research, still nothing has come out. So that
right.
was my major emphasis.
Right, right. So I mean, so my point is that yes, I mean, what I gather from your presentation is that for every single the so-called evidences provided as proof of reincarnation, you can question their methodology, you can question intentions of the researchers. You can question their, uh, qualifications, whether they were capable of the language that they were handling with, and so on. So you can raise methodological questions, and you can of course give alternative explanations. You can say, this false memory syndrome, and so on. You can bring them as counter.
Yeah, you can counter argue.
Yeah. So, but my question remains, as a philosopher who's interested in knowing something, we can know for sure, we can demonstrate that. I don't think that these sort of arguments will decisively abolish the idea of reincarnation as a possibility. I want to use the word, but the possible. I mean, the distinction between the actual and the possible. Uh, for the simple reason that I explained in my initial presentation. So I said that we are talking about an area where there is an epistemological limitation. Uh,
Indeed.
where we can, I mean, for example, if someone can say, okay, so far all the attempts that have been made to prove it, reincarnation has been, there have been failures. Maybe it is the case that our scientific theories are not developed enough. Maybe we need, superior technology. The same way that we there are certain things in the past that we could not detect. Uh, uh, but today we have the equipment, technological advancement enough to detect, from X-rays and so on, right? Bluetooth to radio waves and so on, which if we talk about 2000 years ago, people didn't know about the existence of radio waves, but we know. I mean, it's a very simple thing that we take for granted today, and we know that there are radio waves existing. So what if someone says, right, maybe it is the case that we still don't have sufficient scientific or technological knowledge uh, to prove such thing. So solely because the existing evidence given in support of reincarnation can be disqualified, it doesn't necessarily mean, I mean, this is my point as a philosopher, I'm interested in. It doesn't necessarily mean that it conclusively demonstrates that there is no reincarnation. All we can say is that, say, Ian Stevenson's case studies are false, or I mean, you mentioned so many cases. I mean, Bride Murphy or so on. I mean, we can say that, okay, this particular case, Gnanatilaka's case, is wrong. We can show that the as a case study it doesn't stand the test of scientific rigor. But it doesn't mean just because Jnana Tilaka's or Bride Murphy or Ian Stevens's case studies have been proven wrong, it doesn't disqualify the idea of reincarnation. Now, this is the distinction I want to make, and this is the distinction I don't think. I mean, this is the point where I find your argument. I mean, because you said, uh, when we began this discussion uh, in the comments section under that particular post that I read initially, you began this saying, there is no life after death, no rebirth, no reincarnation, or no transmigration. I don't think that we cannot come to such conclusive, definitive positions uh, strictly from a philosophical point of view. All we have done is we have shown that the current case studies or the evidence given as proof of reincarnation can be challenged on their methodological and empirical basis. And B, we can give counter explanations to the reasons why these people have these amazing abilities to pick up languages and to have past, memories about the past. And you can say, I mean, even like when you were describing that your particular uh, case study that you did with the injured soldier who I think remembered about some past life memory in Kurunakal or somewhere. You said you traveled with one of your colleagues and said that they were like 60% resemblance to the story. And then you said, my interpretation. So that was my point. I mean, you say so all we can do is we can say we can give a different interpretation to every single uh, one of these cases. But that only disproves that particular case is wrong. That doesn't disprove the idea of reincarnation. So my problem, my interest is that can we decisively prove that the idea of reincarnation is wrong? Right. That's basically the response I had.
So you want me to go to my
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay. I concur what you said. Probably we are on the same page. So let me go to my where I have stopped. Yeah, so you can see the screen. And okay, so we spoke about Stephen Harris. And I agree. Vangeesa. It's important to state that reincarnation cannot be validated via a laboratory experiment. I agree. And maybe reincarnation can be proven within the scope of generally acceptable scientific thinking, because uh, the parameters, the tools we are using, maybe it's not applicable, and it's not parallel, and we are in a sort of state of limbo when it comes to reincarnation. So probably reincarnation may be outside the scope of our measurements and can't be falsified. So I agree with you. So that's why in my second part, I said probably we are on the same page, and it's an unknown phenomenon. It needs more research and investigation. So tools and technology that we use today may not be advanced enough to discover natural phenomena like reincarnation, as you mentioned, either the electricity or radio waves or radioactivity. Maybe 500 years ago, if I had mentioned that there is radioactivity in the environment, or there's a thing called electricity, people would ask thousands of questions, and they would laugh at me, and even could be a victim of inquisition. So now we have appropriate tools, and we can show and we can demonstrate, we can handle those phenomena. So reincarnation, maybe it's our future. It's still we are not there. And what Ian Stevens said, even though I do not buy his reincarnation experiments, he says a very important thing. Can we prove that reincarnation is a fact? So he used to say that the word proof should only be used in mathematics. In science, it's all about evidence, not proof. So that's a very, very powerful statement he made. And probably reincarnation is a paranormal phenomenon, transcending the boundaries of time, space, and force. We don't know. And I want to bring this example. Please bear with me. This is my dog, Mila. And now I'm asking a philosophical question. Does Mila know that she is living in Canada? Does she know that she lives in Ontario? Does she know that her master is from Sri Lanka, born in Colombo? And does she know that about? Does she know about Justin Trudeau? No, she doesn't know. She can't apprehend, and she doesn't need. So we are like the same. Maybe her universe is different from ours, and for her it's perfectly okay. She is content. She lives in a sort of, according to our understanding, according to our interpretation, she lives in a very, very narrow realm. Ladies and gentlemen, try to apply it to us. Vangeesa will, if we apply this to us, probably we are like Mela when it comes to reincarnation. So probably there are things we can't apprehend. So what I say is further research is essential to come to a valid conclusion. But still, we are not there. So that ends my presentation. Yeah, so let's go for the discussion.
Maybe if you can exit.
Yeah, I'll do
Yeah.
that, sir. 1 minute, give me 2 seconds. I'll do
Right.
cancel. Yeah, okay.
Right. No, I don't know. I mean, I don't think that there is a disagreement here. I think
That's true. Yeah,
yeah.
that's what at the beginning I said. There are no losers, there are no winners, and I'm very happy, and
But
I'm so delighted.
there are no opponents as well. That is
Yeah.
the problem, right?
No,
There
but
are no.
the thing is, I
Yeah.
wanted to disprove the contemporary research because a lot of people say that when I say there is no life after death, it's like I deny transmigration, and sort of a person dies, his soul
Right.
goes to another body. It's not
No.
scientific. So still we
Right.
don't know. That's why
Right, exactly the point. I mean, yeah, I mean, all we can say is that we don't have any empirical base or something that can be called a scientific theory. But that doesn't necessarily prove that the idea of transmigration is false. I mean,
yeah,
it's just
that's
that,
true. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So, so that was the only point. I mean, that was the point we were making on that
Hmm.
Facebook page, Facebook post, when we said that we cannot know what happens after death. And so I mean, my only humble request from you, Ruwan, is like, the saying in Sinhala that you have to think before you jump. I mean, you have to please read what we had written. I mean, we basically, I think we just said what you would have agreed on.
Yeah,
Something
yeah,
we had,
that's
yeah,
true. But
yeah.
you have to stick to the words I have said. What I deny, I said reincarnation, life after death.
Yeah, but you cannot deny it definitively, no? That is the point. That
Yeah,
is the
that's true.
problem.
Because yeah, that's your yeah. It's in the philosophical sense, yes, because you bring a lot of philosophical ideas, and there's the entity, the unknown.
Yeah,
So if you can apply it for that, you can apply it for not only for reincarnation, even you can put
yeah,
it to these
sure.
Katandias. Even
Yeah,
you can, the Katandia can say, taking your argument, Katandia
right.
can say that
Absolutely.
yes,
Yeah,
there are demons, there are
yeah,
yaku.
yeah,
So how do you know? Even though there is
yeah,
no research,
yeah,
philosophically we can prove that there are demons.
yeah. Exactly. We
Yeah.
have been you. I mean, as you know, you mentioned Nalin de Silva in your presentation. And that we have had as Materi Ridarshane, we had long engagement with Nalin de Silva and his
Hmm.
followers. And he famously espoused on most of these positions, obtaining knowledge by way of gods and direct communications through various divine entities and so on.
Indeed.
Uh,
And
um,
here, Vangeesa, I would like to express one of his famous statement. He says, okay, I'll show you Natha Deva, you show me an electron.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, if you come to that, that relativistic position, that is the problem for philosophy, because philosophy, for me, is as I said, philosophy is a way of questioning our knowledge. It's ultimately what can we truly know, and when we can find a base, Descartes, he quotes. Who's that Greek mathematician? Who
Pythagoras.
not Pythagoras. Oh, is it Pythagoras? I think who said, "Give me a stick long enough, I can and a point to keep, and I
Archimedes.
can Archimedes, no, and I can shift Earth, I can
The
move the
entire
world."
truth, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like that, I mean, then Descartes quotes it and he says, I just want philosopher just want one point that we can truly know, right? One truth we can truly know, and based on that we can try to build an argument. Um, so, uh, so, so my point is that trying to prove or disprove what happens after life is a dead end, philosophically speaking, because we cannot come to a conclusive decision about what happens there, because there's epistemological limitation of knowing what happens after death. For the simple fact that we can only talk about death when we are alive. So we cannot ask from a dead person. Oh, no, I mean, we are not dead either. So we cannot ask from a dead person. So because of this point, as philosophers, that's what we say on that post. As philosophers, we are not interested in this question because we know as philosophers, not as individuals with personal opinions, but as philosophers, we know that we cannot prove conclusively what happens after death. So
Yeah,
it's a deadlock, it's a dead end. So we leave that and then we move along a different path. That's how philosophy is done.
yeah. That
So
I
that
agree, Vangeesa.
right.
But being said that, there's a dangerous. We are opening a sort of a controversial door for that. If we say that, still we had to have an open mind. Still, we don't know what's going on there. So a person like Dhammika Basunne, can take your argument and say that,
Sure.
I mean, you can't disprove because
You cannot. You cannot. I mean that is the problem.
yeah.
Right. I
So
mean we
I
had
think
this.
yeah. Now you and I understand.
Yeah.
The people who have deep understanding about philosophy would understand this argument, but
Yeah.
if this goes to a lay person,
Right.
the, so this can be sort of
No.
overused.
Sure.
So they
No,
can
that
still say that
yeah.
still there is something beyond scientific realm,
Right.
and still we can prove that Dhammika Pania is effective. It has a therapeutic value, and even that who is that Charlton? I have forgotten his name. That Kundalini energy, and he put that he said he using Kundalini energy he could cure COVID.
Maybe Sudhar, if you remember the name. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Anyhow, I
Uh,
don't want to bring any
right.
names here,
Right.
but I mean, a lot of people, I mean, especially those who come with pseudo philosophies, could capitalize on that. So I don't want that to happen because Vangeesa, you bring very excellent and very articulate in your philosophical argument. That's beautiful, and I never heard uh, such explanation from a Sri Lankan academic, because this is the first time I met you. This is the first time we have the encounter. So it's beautiful and very, very nicely and very analytically you explained about that. It's true. I agree. So in the second phase that I said, we are on the same page. So there are no winners, there are no losers, but two of us, we were able to bring some knowledge, doing some brainstorming. I think that's great. So, being said that, I just want to mention another point. Yes, there are gray areas. For instance, I have spoken to a number of gynecologists. They say that it's okay to do abortion before 24 weeks. There is no life because neurologically the formation of the nervous system, the brain areas, it so they point out these facts and say it's okay, so you're not committing any murder. But there are philosophical arguments, there are
Yeah.
religious arguments, there are a lot of gray areas about this, the termination of pregnancy,
Yeah.
and some people, some religions think that the moment of conception, there is life. So we are living in a very, very complex world with different ideas. So obviously we cannot come to sort of unanimous agreement on things. So that's my conclusion. Anyhow, thank you very much. I had a
Right.
very, very
Thank you.
pleasant discussion with you. I'm
Right.
so grateful about that.
Right.
So
Thanks.
shall we
Ruwan,
open the discussion to the
yeah.
forum
Actually,
if
there
they
is
have
a
any
question
questions?
for you by Salia, our good friend Salia Durvitana. It's a question for you. I hope you can see the question. It's posted.
No, I can't see the question.
Let me
I
read it.
think you have muted him.
No. It's he has written it as sent it as a message. I can read the question. Dr. Ruwan, do you believe that the data and information you have provided is percent accurate? How can you say that it is completely true? That I
There's
think is
no such thing as completely true, because you know it's a very, very subjective feeling, and even the court of law, truth has many faces. So I gathered this information from various research, and you can counter argue. You can always counter argue the data and information I have given, same as what Vangeesa did. So philosophically, you can say there is a gray area, and same as the Dhammika Pannier and Kundalini energy. So nothing is absolute, but what I wanted to highlight was the scientific community, what they believe based on scientific evidence. So in the outer area, the outer perimeter, I don't know. So I hope I have answered your question. Any other questions? Anybody want to join? Vangeesa, you can add anything if you wish.
no. No, I mean, it's not a idea or a question. It's rather a request. Like I humbly, as I said before, like I think this we could have avoided. I feel this whole
No, that's good.
misunderstanding. Right.
I think this is the best thing happened. One thing, I came to know you. This is
Right.
as I mentioned, the first time I saw you, and this is the first time I'm having a very pleasant argument with the Sri Lankan philosopher. That's good, because all this time we saw slandering each other, humiliating each other, and bringing filth, and that's not academic way of discussing. I think here we introduce a new decent culture. I think this is a landmark discussion, Vangeesa. Thank you for that organizing, and I'm grateful. Yes, so this gentleman, Mr. Induru Salia, yeah, eats the data and information, especially for example, now with the case of autism. They have done a lot of MRI scans, PET scans, and seen the brain structures and how they understand and how these brain plasticity. So brain plasticity is a reality, because experience changed the brain. And Dr. Kabat-Zinn had done a lot of research, and these are scientifically proven. So most of the stuff I mentioned are scientifically, it's based on science. It's not based on pseudoscience. It's not based on mere assumptions. So, but the absolute truth, I don't know. So you speak to Mr. Vangeesa. In philosophically, you can counter argue always. Any other question?
Right. I have a feeling we can conclude. We can wind off the discussion.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So I will send my email.
Sure.
And if you have any questions further, please feel free to ask, and
Right.
we'll try to answer.
Right.
So from my side, thank you very much, Vangeesa. I'm so
Right.
delighted. And
Thank you, Ruwan.
it
Yeah.
was a very,
Pleasure.
very pleasant experience. And you can put this, once the recording is done, you can put it
Yeah.
on YouTube and
Yeah.
let other people listen to it. And if they have
Right.
any questions, that's really good. So what
Right.
all we did was brainstorming.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Okay. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.